Conor Burns.
Speaker. Can I begin by warmly welcoming the decision of the government to withdraw the programme motion this evening? That is unquestionably a victory for this House over the Executive, because we can imagine that the conversation did not go between the Chief Whip and the Leader of the House and the Prime Minister. Well, Prime Minister, we're delighted to assure you we got the votes in the bag to pass the motion. Oh, excellent, withdraw the motion tonight. This is this House asserting its will over something very important to this House, and I look forward with interest to hearing more about the threat, about the conversation between the usual channels. I always remember Tony Benn's warning that the usual channels were the most polluted waterways in Western Europe. I want to start with this simple assertion. The House of Lords works. It does its job effectively as a revising chamber and not as a rival chamber. And that is demonstrated by the number of amendments made to our legislation in the Lords that we choose to accept here in the Commons. And I want also to deal with one of the arguments, let me just make some progress. I want to deal with some of the arguments that the Deputy Prime Minister has made. He says it's become too big. I absolutely agree with him. It's become far too big. So we should stop sending so many people there, and it wouldn't be so big. The average figures of Lords created, peers created, under Lady Thatcher were 18 a year, under John Major 26, under Tony Blair 37, and under the Coalition we're already averaging 58. Don't make it too big and then say that's a reason to abolish it. And don't also accuse those of us, I'm delighted to give way to the Right Honourable Gentleman.
Very grateful to the Honourable Gentleman for giving way, but he's avoiding surely the key point, Mr Deputy Speaker, which is that the last Labour government faced an inbuilt majority in the Lords for the Conservatives and tried to compensate for that. The coalition government then faced a situation where they wanted to deal with an equivalent imbalance against this government, and the situation is unsustainable. We will go on expanding unless reform is dealt with.
The Right Honourable Gentleman is absolutely right that the situation is unsustainable and untenable, and that's why many of us are in favour of reform. We're in favour of introducing a mechanism for them to retire. We're in favour of introducing a limit on their numbers. We're in favour of strengthening the Independent Appointments Commission. In short, we're in favour of some of the excellent ideas contained in his Right Honourable friend Lord Steele's draft bill. And let's deal with this issue. Let's deal with this issue about how we can legislate our supremacy. What are these people going to do? Are they going to say to their electorates, vote for me, for I have no ideas, I'm not going to publish a manifesto, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do if I go to the House of Lords? Of course they are. You cannot legislate the supremacy of this House when you elect another House. And some of the people who tell you that they can are the same people who told you you could insert clauses into the Maastricht Treaty that would guarantee stability in the Eurozone. We are setting off on the conveyor belt to conflict between this House and the other place, and it is an unsightly and unseemly act for a government to do. I have always had a reverence for the institutions of our country, a profound love of history. When the Right Honourable Gentleman who's now left the Chamber, the former Foreign Secretary, talked about this place and showing it to young people, when they come here they see how our democracy has evolved. They see the battles that previous generations of parliamentarians waged to have this place as the supreme will of the people. Just for 1 minute. When we slam the doors in Blackrod's face, that's not some sort of pantomime theatre. That's an assertion of our historic belief in the power and rights of this chamber. I give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
I thank the honourable colleague for giving way. When he takes his constituents, school children or otherwise, into the other place in this place, does he think that they all find it extraordinary that the people who sit there are completely unelected, or do they think it's wonderful?
I think they're impressed that we accept over 80% of the amendments that they sent back to us. I think they're impressed that there are people up there with great expertise, world-renowned people, who would never dream of putting their names on a party list and going to central office and seeing Gareth Fox and getting onto the candidates list. It just wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen in any way. I had a text last night from my old history teacher who spent his entire career inspiring young people with a love and reverence of our country and its institutions. He said to me, and I couldn't put it better myself, an elected chamber would be a disaster and lead to the dilution of the Commons. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I face a dilemma tonight that I have finally resolved in my own mind. I cannot support this bill at second reading. I couldn't look myself in the eye if I voted for this bill at second reading. And clearly, that is incompatible with membership of Her Majesty's government. So I informed the Chief Whip this morning that I have resigned as Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. I am doing that in order to vote for something that I believe in strongly and on principle. I want to see a fully appointed second house, and I will go into the lobby tonight with the aim of trying to preserve that. And in the same way that other current members of the government, 17 ministers, indeed my right honourable friend who I was PPS to back from August 2010, who went into the lobbies in 2007 in support of a fully elected second chamber. I will go into the lobby in the same way that 6 members of the Conservative Whip's office went into the lobby in 2007 in support of a fully appointed second chamber. And what an Alice in Wonderland world we now live in, that by voting for something that's been a mainstream view in this party for decades, indeed generations, now leads to incompatibility with serving in the government. And I have to say, I'll give away briefly.
If it was such a mainstream Conservative philosophy, as he says, how did Lord's reform sneak into the manifesto, the coalition agreement and the Queen's speech?
It is a very, very mainstream view within the Conservative Party, and indeed I totally agree with my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, who still has my full support and loyalty, when he told the Association of Conservative Peers that this was a very urgent issue for a third term. And I say that as we have yet to win a first term on our own, a third term is quite a way off. I support this government. I support this government in every way. I bitterly regret that I will vote against the government tonight. I support the Prime Minister. I support what the government is trying to do. I even have some coalition-coloured ties to demonstrate that support. And I regret the fact, I genuinely regret the fact, and I see my friends from Northern Ireland opposite, I regret that I won't be able to continue to make that contribution in the Northern Ireland office. As someone who was born in North Belfast and who spent the early part of my years there, as someone who is a Catholic and a Unionist and recognises and understands and indeed feels both traditions in Northern Ireland, I think that is a matter of great regret. But I do it with passion and belief and confidence that it is the right thing to do. And I can tell this House, and it should worry every single member in every corner and every side, the number of comments that I have had who have expressed amazement that a member of this House in 2012 is prepared to resign on a point of principle tells us how diminished and denuded our politics has become in this country. We need more days like today when this House is prepared to assert its will and tell the government what it can and cannot do. And I end with this because I think she was a great parliamentarian. My honourable friends will think I'm going to quote someone else, so I'm not. The Right Honourable and Noble Baroness Boothroyd, who served with distinction in the chair over many years, said to one of the papers this morning, to those of us who will do what I will do later this evening, you are doing the right thing by your constituents, by your country, and by Parliament.